Well, welcome to See Here Love. I'm your host, Melinda Estabrooks. I'm so glad you joined us because we're answering the big question of what is the meaning and purpose of your life? Wow. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, no biggie.
Notice how I brought you all here to answer the big question. I hope you're not afraid or scared of answering this question. So to have this answered, I've got some great people. First off, to my left, Niluka Williams-Johnson. You manage a homeless shelter and you open your home to at-risk youth. Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here. I know you'll have a lot to say about purpose and meaning. So welcome. Beside you, Claire Odogbo. You moved to Canada in 2018 from Doha, Qatar. Qatar, yes. Born in Nigeria, and you now run an executive coaching company and who wants to see executive women thrive to their God-given potential.
Yeah.
So you're perfect. You have a lot to say about purpose and meaning. Are you ready?
A little bit.
Okay, I know it's a little daunting and scary, but you can do it.
Yeah.
All right, Sue Carr, you're the pastor at the Meeting Place Church that meets at 541 Eatery in Hamilton, and it's a volunteer-run cafe that welcomes all people, whether they can afford it or not.
Oh, wow.
I've been there. I love it. You still have the buttons, and you pay for that. We'll talk about that a little later, but welcome. And I know you'll have a lot to say. And, of course, co-host Cheryl Nemhard, an award-winning filmmaker, playwright, author, and social justice advocate.
Just Cheryl.
Yeah, just Cheryl, as we do. Well, I'm glad you're here because I think that this is the show that has come from a lot of viewers and listeners who are saying, how do you find purpose and meaning in life? It seems like you, Mel, and the team know, but how do you make that first step? So this is going to be a really important discussion. But before we get into sort of the nitty-gritty of that, I wanted to share with you news and views and get your opinions that relates to purpose and meaning. Okay, so in 2019, the Health and Retirement did a study, and this is what it says. People who didn't have a strong life purpose, which was defined as a self-organizing life aim that stimulates goals, were 15% more likely to die earlier than those who did, and die of cardiovascular diseases, which means people who have a greater purpose in life live 15% longer than those who don't. Initial thoughts, immediate reactions. What would you say? You think that's true? That's possible? What are your thoughts?
It makes sense to me. I feel like, you know, when you stumble into your purpose and you know what it is and you're living that out, there's a lot of joy fulfillment. There's a lot of peace that happens. I feel like we are stressed when we are doing the thing that seems hard and, it's just a tough road. We're not happy. All of these things are stressors.
Yeah.
And so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so stress, which could possibly equal dying earlier. Yeah, Sue. Yeah.
I think that finding meaning and purpose gives you a reason to get up in the morning. I think when you found meaning and purpose, you found what feeds your soul. And I don't think we should separate our soul from our bodies. I think we're integrated beings. That's how God created us. And that when our souls are right and singing, then I think the rest of us clicks along nicely too. So I'm not at all surprised by the results of that project.
Right. I love that singing. When our souls are singing. Sue, that's fantastic. Yeah. It gives us purpose to kind of get up and have a focus. Yeah. And have meaning. Great.
And I find with purpose and calling, it gives you life. It's life-giving. So when you know what you're called to do and you're walking in it, it gives you that life to keep going in spite of the circumstances or situations.
Yeah, that's good. Claire?
Absolutely. And in my observation, people who do not have an understanding of their calling or purpose in life find it easier to give up on themselves and give up on life. So I wonder if the spike in suicide that we find in our generation is linked to the feeling of hopelessness, that we find prevalent in this generation.
Yeah, you said that the word that I was going to say by answering this is that I think with purpose and meaning, it gives hope. Like, I wake up another day and there's hope in that I will make a difference or that I can make a mark in what I'm doing or I can mentor, give back to the world. There is that sense, and I think hope is this like really key thing in our world that's needed more. To give hope to somebody means that they can then go, okay, I'm gonna look forward to something that's gonna happen. So I agree, and really the takeaway is have life purpose and meaning, and you will live longer.
Yeah.
Wow.
And have true joy.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Wonderful thoughts. When we come back, we're gonna talk more about how to find and live in the purpose and meaning of your life. Start your week off with me in your inbox. Sign up for our weekly newsletter today for exclusive content of See Hear Love, blogs, behind-the-scenes footage, and access to giveaways you'll love. Sign up today and let's start our week together.
Check out the See Hear Love podcast and get the backstory.
Good job!
Get the inside scoop on real issues and real answers on common challenges we all face in relationships and in life. Find See Hear Love on Apple Podcasts.
All right, we're back, and I'm really excited to hear how you individually found your purpose and meaning in life. I know it's big, but I think your stories are going to help our viewers and listeners be inspired and maybe take steps towards finding theirs. So, Sue, let's start with you. Do they call you like Pastor Sue?
Some people do.
Okay, well, Pastor Sue.
No, just call me
Okay, Sue. Sue, how did it start with you? You're now a pastor, executive director of this wonderful cafe that is open to those in need. But how did you get there?
Well, it's a very long story that we don't have time for because
Okay.
I'm very old.
Okay. Well, no, you're not that old.
I started off in nursing.
Okay.
Started off as a young mum in England, 2 kids, came to Canada, had another one. Wondered about pursuing medicine. I have an undergrad in pharmacology.
Oh, wow.
Is it sounding like I should be running a cafe and being a pastor?
Nope.
yet? No.
Nothing at all.
I think what it was doing was the next right thing, the next thing that fueled my passion, the next thing that I was fascinated by and couldn't put down. And so when I ended up as a volunteer with the palliative care unit, and I said, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't think it's going to be medicine. I don't think it's going to be social work. And my chaplain friend said, why don't you become a hospital chaplain? And I said, you must be crazy. Anyway, I did.
Wow.
So I worked as a hospital chaplain and then as a chaplain in a shelter, like your world, and then got asked to come along on 541. And I said, I'll do that if I can bring my little congregation, and they said yes. And I said, have you read my resume? I've never run a cafe before.
But that's the best thing.
They said,
That's
all
the
right,
best
do
thing,
it.
yeah.
And so here we are, and we did. We did it together. It's not just a me, it's a we.
But Sue, the thread though in what I'm hearing is, even with nursing and palliative care, there is a care element. There's a people, care, restoration, healing, bringing back to life, which in that thread, to me, when I hear it, it makes sense that you're a pastor and caring for those that you do.
Absolutely. Looking back, it makes a lot of sense. When you're
But when
sitting
you're
there,
going through,
when you're a young mum with
100%,
little kids,
yes.
and you say, is this my life?
Right.
Well, maybe it is, and maybe it is right then, because maybe there's nothing more
Yeah.
important than looking after kids and making sure that they have everything they need and loving them into the kingdom. But it's one step at a time, and it's not until you look back and you see God never wastes a single thing in your story.
Beautiful. God never wastes a single thing in your story. And you may not see it, but it's every step.
Exactly.
Every step beautiful. Wow, that's good.
So good.
It's fantastic. Now, Luca, what about you? How did you get to the place where you're opening your home up to youth at risk and managing a shelter?
I think a part of it is knowing that finding your purpose is a journey. So as God opens up doors, and as piggybacking on what Sue said, as you feel it within yourself, it feels right. You take that next step forward.
Yeah.
And sometimes God doesn't show you the end picture. He just shows you the next step.
Yes.
So it comes to the place where, am I ready? Am I willing? Am I open to taking that next step? So I had a home, we opened it up, I had my teenage girls, loved it. And I also paid attention to what gave me energy.
Oh, yeah.
What empowered me, what exhausted me. So that kind of led the way. So as I found, I loved it. I love being a mom. And providing that home atmosphere. And so I was like, okay, let me keep going. And then God opened doors, and I met my husband, who was so supportive. And now we have young men, which I didn't see in my journey.
Yeah.
And there's lots of other things I didn't see where I am right now. And I never saw myself managing a shelter. I never saw myself opening up a nonprofit to provide housing for young men. I didn't see that in the journey. All I saw in my journey is just the stage where I was at, and did I feel like it was the right place at the right time, and I took those risks.
Yeah, see,
And
that's good too, because in the thread, like Sue, you can see you have this mom nurturing, caring, opening yourself up to care for people. It's like I think what I'm trying to get at is a lot of times we try to make things work, when really it's who we are and the passions and giftings God's given to us. We already have.
Yeah.
We just need to kind of like look look outside, discern, pray through, and also have people affirm you in that.
Well, just to add to it, you make lots of mistakes along the journey.
Yes, you
There are
do.
many times in the journey I'm like, run, you know, because it's challenging, but you're trusting. You're trusting the journey.
Beautiful. Good. Claire, what about you?
Well, I grew up in a family where there were always people in and out of our home. My dad was a people person as a professor, but he always took that extra step with his students, and he was the counselor, he was the coach, he was everything, you know. So I grew up in that environment, soaking it in, and I didn't realize that it was shaping me, you know. And coming out of that, I found, even in my university days, I always loved people. I was passionate about people. I was passionate about God. Put that together, you do a lot of free counseling, and my heritage, we dole out the free counsel. That's just what we do. Yeah. And so I just found that I have this passion for people. Growing up also, we went through a couple of tragedies as a family, and I shouldn't be where I am today, but I found what the grace of God can do early, how God just took our story and changed it and made me what I am, and I found those truths myself in the Word of God. So in turn, I want to help people discover that. I want to help them discover their potential in God, and that's what has set me on this journey of coaching people, you know. I'm passionate about seeing people grow into the fullness of what they can be in God.
It's good. You know, Claire, it sounds like, again, in the thread, some family of origin, the influence of family that has on actually purpose and meaning, tragedies and experience that shape us into what we are also going to do. Yeah, Cheryl.
So there was this bright light on the road to Damascus. I'm just joking.
That's our after show
joke.
Thoughts. We're going to talk about
There was no bright light. There was no bright light. In a nutshell, I just stopped being afraid.
Yeah.
And I just made a decision to surrender to the call of God purpose was calling me. And I think purpose calls all of us. It's whether we choose to listen to that. And for me, my heart always, I love what you said, it ignited, it lit up for at-risk youth. And for me personally, I have a statement. Sometimes what we go through is what we're called to.
Yeah.
And so that's how I ended up where I was.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But earlier in the year, I interviewed Meghan Donevan, who, just like these women, is an ordinary woman who saw the need and made a difference in the world. That's her story coming up next. Meghan, it's great to have you here all the way from Sweden.
Yeah.
Yes, that's amazing. I want to talk to you about that. Talk to me about how this whole life of yours started, because you've done some pretty phenomenal things in Sweden.
So when I was a teen, I had a boyfriend at that time who basically admitted to me that he struggled with pornography. And I was totally crushed. I was, you know, this naive girl who had no idea that almost all men and young boys are exposed to pornography at a very young age. And many struggle with it in secret, because most of us don't talk about the issue. So that I went from kind of being extremely angry, both at him and then even to these women on the screen. I felt that they've taken something away from me. But both that boyfriend and then myself were able to get support, and that anger turned from anger to empathy, because I realized that this young 11-year-old boy was exposed to these images and had no one to talk to about it, no one to keep him accountable, etc. And that's the reality for pretty much all boys in this day and age.
Wow, that seems so young.
Yeah, absolutely.
So was that the impetus for Reality Check?
What struck me was just, as I mentioned, that no one talked about it. This is this massive global issue related to, you know, connected to prostitution, human trafficking, and yet no one was talking about it. So I realized, okay, I want to be able to educate, to spread awareness about this issue, and to provide resources for people to be able to have those conversations with young people. So we provide lesson plans, curriculums, educational films to teachers, parents, and other professionals to be able to have those conversations with young people. And then, so that's kind of our prevention work. And then my organization, Toledo, also works directly with women who have been exploited in prostitution, pornography, and human trafficking.
For young women that are listening to you and are saying, I'm pretty ordinary, like, what can I offer to the world? Or some may have like a burning desire to make change, and they have no idea where to begin, what would you
Yeah.
say to them?
I'd say, one, make connections. Like, just shoot out that email, find what are my local, you know, whether it's women's shelters or something that you're interested in. How can I get connected to people? Because that's where all those opportunities emerge.
Yeah.
I'd also say that ordinary people do extraordinary things. I mean, you see that all through the Bible as well. God always uses often our weaknesses or our pain and suffering to bring about restoration, healing. And even working at my organization, I see all these other people who are involved. So whether that's giving resources, using their gifting, their talents, etc., to support the women that we work with. And it just blows them away because, you know, say a woman who is, you know, a yoga instructor and wants to support our girls and women by teaching them yoga. The girls are just like, you know, flabbergasted that ordinary people want to support them.
Yeah.
So honestly, I feel like every single person can use their gifting to get involved in whether it's issues related to, you know, violence against women, gender equality, but it's, you know, there's so many issues out there. So there's so much to be done.
You know, I want to, you know, end our conversation by just referencing the name of the organization, Talita, because it comes from, actually, I didn't know this, like a biblical reference, and I think it's a beautiful reference and name to kind of encapsulate all that you do and to empower ordinary women to do extraordinary things.
Absolutely.
Let's finish with that thought about what that's about.
So the name is Talita, and it comes from the verse in the Bible where Jesus is standing at the little girl's bedside, and she's died, and then he says Talita koum, and that means little girl rise up. And that's our vision in our organization. We want to see young girls rise up to a new life, and that's the most amazing part of my job is I get to witness these girls' lives completely transformed. So these girls who were exploited, who had no hope, who had no support, go from being at the lowest of the low to becoming police officers, to becoming trauma therapists who want to give back. And it's amazing to just be part of the process. And I love the name of your show, See, Hear, Love, because that's actually totally what we work with. So it's about seeing these women who have never maybe been seen before, hearing them, listening to them, hearing their stories, and then honestly, it's all about love. That's how they're transformed, and anyone can be a part of that journey.
Meghan, thank you. You're the first person who actually referenced the show name. I'm getting emotional now thinking about that because that's exactly what my heart is for.
That's amazing.
Because I want women, I think that Talita, for, you know, young girl to rise up, that's exactly what my hope is for in this show.
Amazing.
So thank you. Thank you for your presence, and thank you for the extraordinary things that you're doing and making a difference in this world.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Meghan Donevan. Great thoughts, about how she saw the need, you know, to have a curriculum about pornography because her boyfriend at 17 struggled with it, and then gets $1 million from the Swedish government to put her curriculum into every school in Sweden.
So good.
But isn't that amazing? Like, north of Toronto, she would say she's an average, ordinary girl, and what was in her hand, what was around her, saw the need and did it.
Yeah.
Which is
Beautiful.
which is each one of you as well. So let's go into this next question, which is one of my favorites, about how has Jesus and community helped you live out a meaningful and purposeful life? What would you say? Claire?
Oh, well, my relationship with Jesus is what gives me fuel for what I do, right? When I'm in God's presence, I see possibilities. He just opens my eyes to see what I can be in Him. And community gives that opportunity, opens those doors. I like what Sue said about how she was asked to do something, and she said yes. So my story, and I'm sure many other women watching this, their story is one of saying yes to some of those doors that God has opened in community. Someone says, oh, why not volunteer and do this? Like, okay. With trepidation sometimes, no doubt. But then you take that step of obedience. And so one step of obedience after another, and what we call purpose begins to emerge.
Clarify for me, Claire, what it means when because when you said in God's presence, He shows you. For viewers or listeners, they're like, what does that mean? Is it a vision? Is it a word? Is it writing on the wall? But what does that mean specifically?
When I'm worshiping or I'm reading the scriptures, my mind comes alive, right? And I begin to see that, oh, God did that through somebody. He can do this through me
Right.
also. So I can be used by God in my sphere of influence.
Right. So when you are in prayer or communication with Jesus, and that's when we say worship, you say that it comes to mind things that he has done for others and in your past of his goodness and faithfulness to you, right? And it reminds you of how far you've come and what he can do in and through you. Yeah, great. Nicola, what about for you?
I think Jesus has left us a template and an example of how he did ministry. And I think to involve him in the process every single day. He had an ability to see into people's hearts versus looking at their outer appearance. And that has been my struggle and journey, you know, not seeing the addiction, not seeing, you know, somebody living on the street, but seeing that they have potential and purpose and speaking that into their life until it manifests. So that's where I get a lot of my energy from, you know, seeing young men who had severe addiction issues to drugs, alcohol, struggling with their sexuality, etc., to seeing where they are today, walking in their purpose, walking in light, and to me, it makes it worth it. It makes the journey that sometimes is a bit of a challenge, it makes it worth it in the end.
Amazing. And Sue? How has Jesus and the community that you're in really helped you and informed you to have a meaningful and purposeful life?
Well, I try and remember that Jesus calls us to be faithful, not to be successful. So that's good, because sometimes you take things on or you say yes to things and you think, I have no idea where this is going to go. I don't think I can do this. I don't think that's who I am. But I think there's some sort of courageous imagination that we need to have just to take the next step. And I mean, for me and where I find myself now, I mean, our community is so rich. We're in one of the poorest parts of Hamilton. And like you, we work with a whole mix of people who think they have their lives together and people who know that they don't. And really, we're all in need of God's grace and mercy and forgiveness and light. And I guess just being reminding myself that I'm never any different from the people that I serve alongside. And the beauty of the model of the ministry that we have is that we are all called to the table together. So our table fellowship.
My favorite. It's a great visual.
Yeah.
Everybody's called and everybody belongs, has a seat at the table.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter how you come or whether you feel yourself equipped, you are because you're loved first. And I think that experience, if we have it ourselves, it becomes easier to see it in and through other people. So that's
good. So there's never like an us and them.
No.
It's that we all belong and are with
we're all
one
in
another.
we're all in need of God's grace.
Right.
We all have an opportunity to become more in Him. And it's really, it's the privilege of doing that alongside other people and seeing it take root in their lives. It's amazing.
Amazing, eh?
Yeah.
It makes it worth the work and the hard work that you do.
It makes it worth it.
It makes blood, sweat, and the blood, sweat, and tears.
Actually, it makes it worth the blocked toilets, the dishwashers.
I'm like blood, sweat, and tears with the blocked toilets.
Right? All of the things that they don't tell you that are totally non-glamorous. That did they train you for in seminary? No, there was no course in that.
But it makes it worth it. Yeah. Cheryl, what about you?
You know, Jesus is my life coach. And he, you know, from the beginning of time, he's been always affirming the gifts in his disciples, women. And I just feel like, you know, if we surrender and just say yes, I love that. There's purpose behind that yes. There's ministry and community behind that yes. And I'm just so excited to see more and more young people answering the call. And that's a really cool thing. I got a quick mini purpose inventory. It's 30 seconds. How do you know your purpose? How would you figure that out if you're kind of green? What is the thing that lights you up? What is the thing that you could do for hours and not sleep? What is the thing you could do for no money and just run and go?
That's important.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's a good way to figure.
Good ways,
Yeah.
Amazing.
You know, I would agree with all of you. I would say Jesus and community is why I'm here today. I wouldn't be here without the love and care of people who invested their lives and took a chance on me. And I think Jesus is the one who I follow because, I mean, his life is extraordinary and beautiful and everything that I desire to be and to become. And so I'm so thankful for him, and I'm so thankful for you as women who are stepping out in courage and faith to pursue a purposeful life. So awesome. Thank you so much. Well, let's now go to Joanna LaFleur, our Bible teacher and co-host, as she shares from the good word from Proverbs 31:8, which is about speaking up for those who cannot speak for themselves. That's next.
Thanks, Mel. Love this conversation. It's something that's really close to my heart because I grew up with a mother who did this, advocating for justice and especially for other women. My pictures of her growing up, my images of my mother was her demonstrating this kind of work. I can picture her when we lived in Romania as a kid, and I remember her holding these HIV/AIDS orphans who no one else would love. I remember her sitting and working with women who were coming out of just abject poverty and total injustice in their life. I saw how this could change not just the trajectory of one woman to woman, but actually the trajectory of a family, an entire village, a whole church community, if one woman rises up to advocate on behalf of another. In Proverbs 31, this is often where we go to think about, we roll our eyes at like this perfect woman in Proverbs 31 who has this noble character, but just before it goes into what this amazing woman looks like, it calls us to this. In verse 31, verse 8, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy. This is our great privilege as women, and part of the community that we build on this show is to be part of justice and to speak up for the rights of those who have no voice to speak for themselves. I hope you have a mentor or someone in your life who's like my mom who you can look to learn how to do this. But if not, there are amazing mentors you can find right here on this show, in the people we're interviewing, and in the scriptures themselves as women rise up fighting for justice. It is one of the most godly things that a woman can do, to spend herself, to use her voice for those who have no voice. This is the way of Christ, and this is the way we get to live as women of God. Back to you, Mel.
Well, thanks, Joanna. Great words from the good word. Okay, we've got a quick well, actually not a few minutes, but a few seconds to do our takeaway. What would be your takeaway on someone who is struggling with purpose, first step, or advice? Go, Claire.
So mine is two-pronged. First thing is to ask God, because He has the owner's manual, right? What do you want me to do next, right? You may not get the answer to the big question, but ask that. And two, ask if a trusted friend or someone around you, ask them, what is it, the one thing I do well?
Oh, okay, yeah, it's good.
In what area do you think I can serve? And let them tell you that answer and do something with that answer.
Okay, good, excellent.
I would say to be intentional with your time with the Lord and be still. Allow Him to be a part of your journey and direct you, and take that risk to take that first step.
Oh, excellent, great. Sue?
I like both of those answers. I'm not sure I can say anything much to add. Do anything, just anything to get out your front door and engage with something, whether it's helping in your kids' school or volunteering at the local, whatever it is. But do anything and God will show you the next step, the next place, the next person.
Perfect.
But you've got to start the movement.
Take the step. And Cheryl?
Hey, purpose has been calling you. Purpose is calling. Answer the call and do it afraid.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, all of you, for living a purposeful, meaningful life and for inspiring myself and our viewers and listeners on that. So thank you so much. And to you, if you want more information about our guests, resources, or you want to read blogs on our topic today, go to seehearlove.com. And make sure you go to our See Hear Love YouTube channel and subscribe for the backstory, our after show thoughts, and all different kinds of content that are going to help you on your life journey of meaning and purpose. And as you go, and as you pursue what God has called you to be and do, know that you are seen, heard, and deeply loved by God. Bye-bye.
Melinda's Hair by Paolo Marola. Melinda's Clothing sponsored by Denise Boutiques. Clothes for every woman. Shop denise.ca.
Deeks Insurance is a proud sponsor of the See Hear Love Studio.